Strategies that we present today can be used to donate to your local Christian school or the Christian School Foundation, perhaps designating your donation to a specific cause, such as tuition assistance bursaries, or to a longer term fund for a specific Christian school. And yes, the end of the year is coming quickly, and you can use these strategies before December 31st. But the hope is that these strategies can be used for whatever cause God lays on your hearts and whatever time of year. We also recognize the bigger kingdom picture. And these same strategies referred to today can be used for other charities whose mission God lays on your hearts, including your churches. And if the organization indicates that they can't utilize the strategy, well, you can just easily connect with the foundation or CSS, and we can likely facilitate the donation. First, I think it's important starting point is to give a brief reminder of why Christians give. Giving is part of being in a community. Giving is foundational to our role as disciples of Jesus. And our God has given you his amazing story. And one thing that you all have in common is that God has created you in his image. You are called his children. You have been given an amazing gift of life through his son, Jesus Christ. John 3:16, God so loved the world so much that he gave his one and only son. God gave us salvation through Jesus. So we've established that our God is a giving God. And within God's big story, you all have your own family story. You have experiences that impact your view on the world and who God is. And you'll respond differently. You respond differently as stewards and using your gifts and abilities in his story and your story. And as mentioned, our God is a giving God. And we are made in his image. And we are given some of his characteristics. And he has created us to be like him, givers. We are people who give. And yes, we're all sinful and our response is flawed. And our giving can be flawed, of course. But God calls us to continue to respond to him in obedience and in faith. So as stewards of all that God entrusts to you, stewardship is an act of worship. It's an expression of your faith. And again, stewardship involves many different areas, but today we're going to focus on the area of finances and material possessions. So that leads us into how we can respond to God and to his people as we give generously, cheerfully, and effectively, as we give well. A couple days after the presentation, as Megan mentioned, we'll provide you an electronic copy of this booklet that appears on your screen. And this booklet includes several strategies, and we're going to talk about some of them today. And as Megan mentioned, you don't have to take notes unless you really like doing that, or like for me, it's an effective way for me to remember things. So you do what you want to do. Effective giving strategies assist you in your generosity and ability to influence our culture in the name of Jesus. And again, each person here has different characteristics and passions that God has placed on your heart. Every person has different circumstances. So again, some of these strategies may totally be applicable to you, and some may be irrelevant to your situation today. Well, first of all, traditional ways to donate are still very effective. So donating with cash, for example, is still effective. In fact, maybe some of you right now are sitting on your couch or your living room chair, and during this webinar, you can look for the loose change in between the cushions. Well, all kidding aside, cash, checks, e-transfers, and online donations through credit or debit cards, gifts in kind, such as products or personal items, they are still great ways to make an impact in this world. And often these donations come from your disposable income. You make money and you spend money, including giving some of that money away. So the strategies today are sometimes referred to as non-traditional. The strategies do not necessarily use your disposable income, but these strategies allow you to share from your wealth and your assets. Let's take a look at the chart for a moment. And you can find your province and see what sort of tax savings you have when donating. For example, Those in Alberta and Nova Scotia, for every $100 you donate, you can count on a 50% tax credit, which means that a $100 donation will likely only cost you $50 after the federal and provincial tax credits are applied. Ontario has a little less tax savings at 40.16%, but still generous. So every $100 an Ontario resident donates, it will cost you about $60. Again, still a great tax advantage and savings of $40. And you can see BC, you are sitting at 45.8%, kind of in between everybody. Overall, both the federal and provincial governments are quite generous when it comes to donation tax credits. And the reason for that is because people are generous, and the government knows the impact of your generosity on our society. So here are some of the non-traditional strategies in this book. And again, we'll be talking about these here as we move forward. And again, perhaps we'll get through the first four or so, and you might be thinking, whoa, they all apply to me. Or maybe someone will be thinking, none of those four apply to me. Don't sign off. I think there will be at least one and hopefully more applicable to everyone. So one non-traditional strategy that is becoming more common, and it's still very tax effective, is donating non-registered shares or mutual funds that have increased in value. Martha, she's an elderly Christian school supporter who has a passion for her local Christian schools and the foundation's tuition assistance program. And so she donates several times during the year. Now, she prefers to give using shares that have increased in value rather than writing a check. And why is that? Well, because she diverts money away from her income tax bill, since she doesn't have to pay tax on the capital gains. And instead, she adds the tax savings to her charitable gift for the causes she loves so much. If you have non-registered shares or mutual funds that have increased in value, you can donate these shares directly to the Christian School Foundation, and we will forward that donation to your charities that you're passionate about, and you would likely pay no tax on the capital gain. Martha invested $20,000 into her favorite non-registered stock, Apple. That stock grew to $60,000, and the increase on that growth is called a capital gain. Now, in Martha's case, there was a capital gain of $40,000. Now, if she decided to sell the full amount of that stock under current legislation, since her capital gain is still less than $250,000, she has to report 50% of the $40,000 capital gain, or $20,000 is reported as taxable income, resulting in perhaps up to $10,000 in tax. So what happens is there's only $50,000 left to spend or donate. Martha would be in a taxable situation. But instead of selling the shares and donate what is left over, Martha decided to transfer the shares directly to the Christian School Foundation. Wow, what happens next? The tax disappears. Instead of Martha giving $50,000 to the charity, she was able to give $60,000 because charities don't have capital gains tax or any tax to pay. Martha received a receipt of the full value given to the charity. She received a receipt for $60,000, but it needs to be done in kind. And if you do this, don't sell the shares and then donate the proceeds. Gift the actual shares or mutual funds to the charity. We have several donors of all ages doing this each year, and we even have repeat donors. People are donating shares of all values, and the schools and churches and charities are blessed. Martha paid no tax on her capital gains, and she received a tax receipt of $60,000, which then, when put onto her tax return, she used this tax receipt against other income, and she saved almost another $30,000 in tax. In the last 3 years, the foundation has received over $2 million in security donations, which we've been able to disperse to schools or put in a fund at the foundation specifically for a certain school. So what some givers also do is send the foundation a certain amount, and then ask us to disperse that certain amount to the local Christian school and a certain amount to the church, and sometimes one or more other charities that you're passionate about. Finally, if you have a corporation, whether a holding company or an operating company, you can also donate shares and receive a donation receipt. In addition, a portion of your capital gain that you're not paying tax on can also be paid to the shareholders as a tax-free dividend. Now, you're going to need to discuss this further with your tax advisors because again, every situation is different. Well, the next strategy, it's part of the securities family, and it's called flow through shares. Now, this one is for higher income earners. It requires a lot of cash up front. It involves your tax and financial professionals because every situation needs to be analyzed on its own. Now, there's several tax incentives, and at the end of it, for example, if you're a BC resident, that initially begins with a donation of about $100,000, which is a blessing to all charities, of course. Under normal circumstances, this donation would cost about $54,000 after tax credits of $46,000. Again, referring back to that provincial chart that we shared. But by using this strategy, the possible after-tax cost to a BC donor is about 3%, $3,000. Now, you would need to work with a third party who specializes in these sort of flow through share transactions. And we know donors in BC who have used this tool and have worked with an organization called Pear Tree Securities. And there are others, and in each case, the schools were blessed. So flow through shares, they allow donors to purchase shares of Canadian resource companies. And they're called flow through because their resource companies' exploration costs, they flow through to the subscriber of the shares or the donor. And the federal and provincial governments allow for what's called energy tax credits or other benefits from the resource corporation to flow through to the taxpayer. So then the donor then donates the shares of the energy corporation to a charity. The charity sells the shares and receives the funds and provides the donor with a tax receipt, which then provides further tax savings to the donor. Now, this is an option for individuals and corporations, and the Christian School Foundation recognizes this as an option, but one again that not all are able to utilize. Another strategy, it's called a donor advised fund. John and Marissa sold a large part of their business assets in 2020. And this provided some extra cash during the year, but it also put them in a higher tax bracket for that same year. Now, they wanted to donate to their local Christian school and a few other charities, but they knew that their school was having an anniversary campaign in 2 years. So in 2020, they set up a donor advised fund with $150,000 and simply called it the John and Marissa Family Fund. They received a donation receipt for $150,000 and were able to save substantial tax in 2020. Now, the advantage with a donor advised fund is that the fund remains at the Christian School Foundation or our partners at Christian Stewardship Services, and the money does not have to be distributed immediately. It was 2 years later in 2022 where John and Marissa requested a disbursement of $25,000 from the fund to be sent to the school in honor of their 60th anniversary. The remaining funds stayed in the account, earning income. Now, some funds were later used in 2022 for a project at their local church and food bank, along with a year-end drive for the Christian school. Now, an amount is still sitting in this fund, knowing that in 2025, the school is kicking off a building campaign, and they look forward to donating next year. A donor advised fund is created when you contribute an amount to a fund at the Christian School Foundation, or again, our partners at CSS. And CSS, Christian Stewardship Services, has a wonderful online tool called what's called MemberNet. And this kind of fund is helpful for donors who are giving at any level. At CSS, you could start off the fund with $500 if you like. It is that easy. The initial funds can come like John and Marissa, maybe through a check, or you gift securities to create a fund. So you create a fund, and it's kind of like a charitable bank account, or it's like your own family foundation without any costs. You receive a donation receipt for the full amount given in the fund. And this money will earn income based on the returns of the foundation or Christian stewardship services. It's called a donor advised fund because you, as the donor, advise to direct the funds to your charities and distribute at your time. You can distribute the money to the foundation, to your local Christian school, to your church, your favorite charities in the current year or in future years. Or you can do what John and Marissa did and kind of just wait for that special anniversary or campaign year. Well, creating a fund like this is helpful for many reasons. Let's say you had shares, like our earlier example, that appreciated to $60,000, and you feel right now might be a great opportunity to donate those shares because the market's high, it's a substantial capital gain, and so you donate them to a charity. But you didn't want to distribute the proceeds yet to the local Christian school or any other charity. You wanted to wait a couple of years until the school's building campaign began. And so you get a donation receipt this year to apply against your tax owing. And the money you donated can sit in the donor advised fund and again, earn income, which gives you more opportunity to give to the schools or your charities. Or perhaps this year you had extra taxable income. And maybe you sold some taxable assets or withdrew additional retirement funds that were taxable. To offset some of the tax, you may want to make a donation into such a fund. In both these situations, you can create or add more to your family fund at the foundation or CSS. You receive a donation receipt in the year that you made the donation to the fund in order to offset income tax, and the funds can be distributed at your time and to your charities anytime in the present or future. And if you don't use that donation receipt in that 1 year when it's issued, you can carry forward the donation receipt for up to 5 years and apply it against your taxes owing in any of those years. Now, sometimes it might be financially difficult to gift while alive, but you can arrange while you are alive to give upon your death. And life insurance could save a lot of tax owing at the time of death, but more importantly, it could be a blessing for both the charity and the estate. George had an existing policy and it was no longer needed for his spouse or his children. Well, he continued to maintain the policy and he changed his beneficiary from his wife to the Christian School Foundation, directing the proceeds to be put into a long-term fund for the local Christian school upon his death. And yes, he did inform his wife of this. It was that simple. In this case, he does not receive a tax receipt on the annual premiums that he continues to pay, but his estate will receive a donation receipt upon his death for the proceeds of insurance that indicated the charity as the beneficiary. And the executor can apply that donation receipt against other income in his estate, potentially saving a lot of income tax. Another method is to do what Catherine did, also with an existing policy. She transferred the existing policy to the Christian School Foundation to be the owner of the policy, and she designated the funds specifically for her local Christian school and for her church. Since the foundation becomes the owner of this policy, Catherine received a tax receipt for the fair market value of the policy at the time of the transfer. And she receives an annual donation receipt on the premiums that she continues to pay for the policy held by the Christian School Foundation. Now, of course, then there will be no receipt for the estate because the estate does not receive the funds in this case because the foundation's the owner. And Catherine already received the tax benefits up front. Well, with your existing policy, you can make the Christian School Foundation your beneficiary, or you can make the foundation the owner of the policy. And in both cases, you would specifically designate that the insurance proceeds go to a Christian school or a charity of your choice. But you can also create a completely new policy with the intention of donating to a charity. And again, this is becoming more popular among donors. Similar to the existing policy, with the new policy, the charity or foundation can be the beneficiary or the new policy can be owned by the foundation for the purpose of the charity or Christian school. Canada Life Insurance actually has an insurance product specifically with the intention of donors who want to donate the proceeds. Each have different tax benefits and tax savings. And some savings are more immediate, and other savings will be in the future with your estate. So this depends on your goals and cash flow, what your cash flow situation is. Whether you do a life insurance policy or not also depends on the needs of the school, whether they have needs in the present or will they have those needs in the future. But life insurance can be a blessing for both the donor and for the charity. Now, another powerful strategy is what we call a charity child, putting a charity child in your will. This strategy is making a tremendous impact, and we are seeing schools reap benefits from this one. Ken and Sheila participated in a Will Planning 101 event held by the Christian School Foundation. And they found out that simply being connected to a Christian school, they can use the services of Christian stewardship services at no cost. So they met with our partner, CSS, and together with a stewardship consultant from CSS, Marinus, they reviewed their whole estate. Ken and Sheila realized that the last one of them to pass away will have taxable assets, and they're likely going to be taxed at a high rate. Through their will, their family members are cared for. But when reviewing everything, they realize that there's still money that can be donated to their favorite charities. Although tax savings prompted the conversation, they wanted to be obedient and stewardly with their assets. And giving will leave a legacy for Ken and Sheila, and again, make an impact for Christian education. So let's just go through the example of Ken and Sheila. Ken and Sheila are a family with 4 children and $2 million in assets. And of those assets, 400,000 are taxable. Now, the left side indicates that they have been committed to Christian education and Christian causes while they are alive, but they didn't initially consider charitable giving in their will until hearing about it at the event at their Christian school. With 400,000 in registered retirement investment funds, RIFs, keeping it simple will be about $200,000 owing in tax. What happens is then after taxes paid by the state, there's $1.8 million left. And so each child will receive $450,000. Well, again, while chatting with their CSS consultant, Ken and Sheila explored adding a child called Charity. So what happens is now it's considered to be 5 children in their will. And in this case, the charity child gets equal to the others. Now, the charity child doesn't have to be equal to the other children. Again, it depends on your situation and other factors as well in your lives. But in this case, there's no tax payable due to the gift to your charity. Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, gets 0 tax in this case. The charity gets 400,000, and each of their children will also get 400,000. Yes, as you notice, it's a little less in the first scenario, but look how much the charity now receives because of the tax savings, and the children are still taken care of. This is a wonderful tool for Ken and Sheila to first bless their family whom they love, and also make a tremendous impact by blessing charities that they're passionate about. Now, here's just a little tidbit of information. Did you know that when surveyed, 90% of Canadians said that they would include a charity in their will? 90% said they would, but only 10% have done it. The reason that people cited why they have not done so is because they've never been asked. So we are asking and encouraging each of you to review your estate and see if this makes sense in your situation. One other strategy that we'll briefly discuss is charitable annuities. And it only pertains to a specific group of people based on specific circumstances. So a charitable annuity is for those ages 70 or older, and you want to support a charity, but you still need some income and cash flow to live off of. So what you can do is set up a charitable annuity, which is a contract between you, the donor, and a charity where you contribute a sizable gift to the charity. And in return, the charity provides a partial donation receipt and provides you with a fixed income stream for the rest of your life. Again, this is a strategy that's permitted, but very specific to your circumstances and, of course, age. Christian Stewardship Services can assist you with this, or there's also another charity called Link Charity that can assist you with this. One final strategy, and I'm quickly referring to this one, and I'm not going to go through all the details, but it's the gifting of RSPs and registered retirement investment funds, RIFs. When RSPs and RIFs are withdrawn, and you may know this, 100% of the value comes into your income and you're taxed on. There is an option that you can gift some of your RSP or RIF to your favorite charity while you are still alive, and as a result, still save tax. Another option is when you pass away. You can also gift part of your RSP or RIF through your estate and bless a charity and have your estate save tax. Other options you can implement is naming beneficiaries on your registered accounts, such as a tax-free savings account or RSPs or RIFs. Perhaps you can name a spouse or other family members, or depending on the needs of your family, perhaps it might be advantageous to name a charity as a beneficiary. But there's things to watch out for. And again, these need to be discussed with a CSS expert or financial planner or accountant. Well, those are some of the strategies we want to share with you this afternoon. And our hope is that at least one resonated with you. And if not, perhaps you can share some of these strategies with your friends and family. And again, there are more strategies, but we do recommend that, there will be times that you need to include your tax advisor, your financial planner, and maybe even in some cases, you've got to get your lawyer involved. But we also encourage you to involve your family, especially in areas that include the will or beneficiaries on assets. Involve family in the conversations. And it is also healthy to involve family in your general giving while you're alive. We have the opportunity to be examples to the next generation, and they will also know what is important to you and why, and they'll establish what's important to them as well. Finally, a reminder that each person has different circumstances, but in whatever situation, what we have in common is a faithful God, and it's important to thank God for his many provisions and his faithfulness. Finally, we talked a little bit about Christian Stewardship Services. I want to mention a few more things. We have a close partnership with CSS. The fact that you are on this webinar means you are somehow a supporter of one of our member schools. And as a result, you have access to the services at CSS for no cost. If you have some effective giving questions, you can call us at the foundation and we would be more than willing to assist. And if you want to look at the big picture of your estate, you can request a free consultation with your regional stewardship consultant from CSS. On the screen there, you'll see the three consultants, Hilco, Marinas, and Bill, and they will look at the big picture, and they can assist you with organizing your estate and stewardship activities while alive, or having things in order for when you pass, to assist with strategies that make sense in your circumstances. CSS consultants are not lawyers, but they are experts, and they will walk through your will preparation for free, and perhaps using some of the strategies that we mentioned this afternoon. And again, if it makes sense in your situation. And they make the work of the lawyer a lot easier for you. So you can book a visit directly on their website. The QR code is on the screen there, and that's going to take you to their contact page. And Marinas of CSS has joined us this afternoon as well. And I just wanted to introduce one of the consultants to you. So you just have a familiar face there. And so we welcome Marinus. There's the Christian Stewardship logo.
Mhm. And Marinus is here to help us answer some questions at the end. So there we are.
Yeah, so there's Marinus, and we just want to remind you, welcome Marinus, by the way. Good to see you there. Today's presentation has been about information and opportunity. It's not about the foundation, raising funds for itself or even the Christian schools. We just want to be able to provide the supporters effective ways to give to whatever charity God puts on your heart. Ultimately, the mission of the foundation includes Christian schools, and that's what we're passionate about. And hopefully, with some of today's presentation, this will excite you as to what God is doing in his kingdom through Christian education. So on behalf of those of us from the Christian School Foundation, we thank you for this opportunity to present. And again, we have some time for some general questions. Yeah, it's 2:40, so we have some time for some general questions. We can't get into specific circumstances. For those who do have specific circumstances, please do not hesitate to connect with me or set up a conversation with Christian Stewardship Services. So at this time, I'm just going to stop sharing the screen as we take on some questions from the folks.
Perfect. Yes. Well, thank you, Kevin. So just a reminder, if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A or just put them in the chat to me directly. One question I'd love to start with. We talk about donating securities a lot, especially at this time of year. It's a really helpful tool that a lot of donors use for their year-end giving. Can you talk about how the process is of splitting the proceeds between different charities? Kevin, I'd love you to tell me about what that looks like at the foundation. And then Marinus, could you give us a little bit more information about the MemberNet tool and how a donor might incorporate that in their year-end giving? Actually, let's start with
Great.
Marinus for that one.
Oh, you started with Marinus?
Yes, tell us about MemberNet and how someone might
Okay,
incorporate a gift of securities and that into their year-end giving.
go for it.
All right. Well, that's great. I mean, as Kevin shared when he was talking about the Donor Advised Fund, CSS has this online access to your Donor Advised Fund. And so Megan's question was about an appreciated security gift, which is nice to do in a lump sum. So you might say, as Kevin mentioned, the time is right to make this gift. The price is high. And so you make the decision. You fill out a form with CSS or with the Christian School Foundation, and that starts the process. And so then when we receive that security or the mutual fund, and just be aware, when you do a mutual fund, it's going to take a little longer. And so you don't want to be doing this on December 25th.
Thanks for saying that.
Yes. Yeah. For one, Kevin is going to be in church that day, but we like to see people do it through the year, when the time is right. And some people are used to doing year-end giving. And when you use appreciated securities as a tool for that, it can get a little awkward. So please do it early December if you're thinking of doing it this year. So when the funds land, so you fill out the form, which transfers the mutual fund or the stocks to CSS or to the foundation. They land with us. And at CSS, we have that access to the fund. So let's say it's $50,000. It lands in your account, in your donor advised fund. You log online, and then you can distribute to any of the Christian schools. Obviously, those are the focus on the seminar today, but also to any of the 80,000 charities. 8,000 charities across Canada, and you just highlight that charity and say, I would like 10,000 to go here, 5,000 there, 10,000 there. And so it's a beautiful way to track your giving from one spot, have one receipt at the end of the year, and be able to access it and distribute some when the need comes up, like a drive. Like in St. Catharines, we just had our phone drive at Beacon. And so they're raising money for the tuition reduction. And so I could just go onto my MemberNet account and say, send X dollars over to Beacon Christian Schools.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marinus.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
Kevin, can you tell us, when someone is giving a gift of securities to the Christian School Foundation, can they only give to a Christian school?
No, of course, our focus on Christian education and Christian schools, but we recognize we want to be available to the donors and flexible and facilitate that whole donation. So we recognize that donors also have other passions. So as using Marina's example of $50,000, for example, they might say, hey, put $25,000 towards a Christian school, whether it goes directly to the Christian school or perhaps it stays in a fund at the foundation to be used down the road in a long-term fund. And then they might say, okay, half went to the Christian school. Again, these are just examples, but we also want a portion to go to our church. We want a portion to go to the local food bank. We want a portion to go, as Marina's mentioned, to another one of those 86,000 charities across Canada. If they're registered, yes, CSS and the foundation can forward that money on. When we receive your security, we also ask you to fill in what's called a gift direction form. And on that form, you just list where all the charities, and we send it out to them, and yeah, they will be blessed by the donation.
Perfect. So what I'm hearing is that this is a pretty flexible tool, and that if it sounds like it's the right tool for you, today is a good day to get started on it.
I would say so,
Perfect.
not December 25th. And I did want to just add, because we pointed out slightly a bit of this in the presentation, but let's say you want to donate to your church and you want to donate shares, and they say, what? Like, we've never done that before. We have no idea. Again, if you're donating to the church, connect with CSS. If you're only donating to the church, connect with CSS. They will work that, they will help you out to facilitate it, and that church will be blessed, and they'll say, we never knew we could do this. So
Perfect. So I have one more question that it's a little bit more of a detailed question about gifts in your will. So when you're talking about the charity child, is it better to include a specific dollar amount or a percentage? So Marinas, this is something you do a lot. What do you usually suggest to people?
As Kevin mentioned a few times, it really depends on the situation. But as a general rule, when you're working with CSS, you can choose a percentage because there is only CSS involved. If you're going to list 10 charities in your will and give them each a percentage, then it gets really complicated because they're all going to want to make sure that they got their percentage and things can get dragged out. So that's one of the benefits of working with the foundation or with Christian Stewardship Services, that we have a letter of direction. So you have one charity in your will. And so let's say you say 10% is going to go to charity. It goes to CSS, and we work with your executor, with your children, or whoever it is, to facilitate that. And we're not going to nickel and dime to make sure we get that exact amount. There's some horror stories out there about charities. And actually, there was just one in the last few weeks out in BC, right? The Rotary Club, and somebody changing their mind and trying to change things. And there's a lot of dollars involved in that situation. I think it was a $60 million estate. So a specific dollar amount cannot be questioned. It's that many dollars to that specific recipient, whether it's a charity or a person. But when you work with an organization like us, and we've been doing it for almost 50 years now, we make it smooth. We walk alongside both yourself in planning it and your executor in working it out. And we facilitate what's on your mind, what's on your heart, and support the charities that you want to bless.
Perfect.
That's great.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Marinas.
Thanks. Yeah, and Marinas, just to add to that a little bit, I just want to confirm, because if you leave a dollar amount in your will as well, who knows when that will was created, maybe 25, 30 years ago, and then by the time somebody passes away, it's possible that, all the money went to the charity, and oops, we didn't leave any for our loved ones either. Is that a danger as well?
Yeah, great comment. Anytime you put a specific number in, you have to make sure you revisit that regularly. And Kevin didn't put that as one of his stats in there, but there's 60% of us as Canadians, our will is not saying what we want. Some of us may have a will. A lot of us don't have a will. But even those of us who have the will, when's the last time you looked at it? Is it still saying what you want? We don't tend to review that often enough. And so when you put a specific number in, and I just visited with somebody the other week, and they were in their 80s, And they said, yeah, we're really blessing this charity, and we're giving $600 to these charities. And they were immigrants, started with nothing, and $600 was a big amount. But the will was 20 years old, and today they have $3 million in their estate. Is that still relevant to what they wanted? And it wasn't. They wanted to change it, but they just didn't realize it. They knew they had a gift, but they didn't realize how it fit.
Right. Yeah. And I just want to emphasize something that you just said too. So CSS consultants will connect with people, not only if they don't have a will. I mean, you'll help create them and work through the process of creating a brand new will, but you'll also go and work with them to update a will, as you mentioned as well, right?
That's right. That's the
Okay,
service
great
that's
stuff.
offered to you by the Christian School Foundation, is us walking alongside.
Yeah, so great. So take
Perfect.
advantage of that, folks.
Well,
Megan.
thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank
If
you.
something you heard sparks a question and you don't quite know what the next step is, just send us an email. You'll get a follow-up email from us. You can just respond and we'll help get you on that next step, whether that's for a gift you want to make as part of your year-end giving, or whether you want to take some steps to reconsider your gifts in your will. So once again, thank you everyone so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have people from many of our school communities here today. And we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you.
Yeah. See you,
Have a great
folks.
day.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Marinas.
Yeah.